An old battlecruiser, a mysterious note. What the human mechanic did next was unbelievable. A 5-part HFY Sci-Fi Story outline. Part 1, The Discovery Setting, Salvage Station Delta 7, Outer Rim of Human Space. 2387C human mechanic Jimin Park works the graveyard shift at a massive orbital salvage yard, stripping decommissioned warships for scrap metal and useful components. The work is lonely, dangerous, and poorly paid, exactly what someone with his past deserves, or so he tells himself. Tonight's assignment: a 200-year-old Earth Defense Force battlecruiser, the EDF Defiant. The ship is a relic from humanity's first major interstellar war against the aggressive Vulcan Empire. Most of her weapons and valuable tech have already been stripped by previous crews. As Jimin crawls through the ship's maintenance tunnels, cutting away copper wiring and rare Earth components, his plasma torch accidentally burns through what appears to be a false panel. Behind it, he discovers a hidden compartment containing a sealed container marked with ancient military codes. Inside the container, a handwritten note from the ship's former chief engineer, Commander Hee-Soo Kim, dated 3 days before the Battle of Proxima Station, humanity's most devastating defeat. The note is addressed to whoever finds this and contains technical specifications for something called Project Prometheus, a theoretical engine modification that could revolutionize faster-than-light travel. But the note also contains a warning. The project was buried because it was deemed too dangerous for any species to possess. Jimin stares at the technical diagrams, his mechanical expertise allowing him to understand the brilliance of the design. This isn't just an improvement. It's a complete paradigm shift that could make human ships faster than anything else in the galaxy. The question is, why was it hidden, and why now? Part 2, The Ghosts of War. Jimin can't sleep. He spent 3 days studying Commander Kim's notes, and the more he understands, the more excited and terrified he becomes. The Prometheus drive doesn't just make ships faster, it makes them impossibly fast, capable of crossing galactic distances in days rather than months. He begins researching Commander Kim's service record and discovers she wasn't just any engineer, she was a legend. Her innovations kept humanity's fleet fighting long after they should have been overwhelmed by superior Vulcan technology. But she died when the Defiant was destroyed at Proxima Station, taking this secret with her. Or so everyone thought. Jimin's research attracts attention. Station Security Chief Deho Lim notices the unusual data requests and confronts Jimin. But instead of confiscating the notes, Deho reveals his own secret. He's a former EDF intelligence officer who's been watching for exactly this kind of discovery. Deho explains that Project Prometheus wasn't abandoned because it was dangerous to use. It was buried because humanity wasn't ready for the responsibility. The drive technology doesn't just affect the ship using it. It affects space-time itself in ways that could be weaponized on a galactic scale. Commander Kim hid it for a reason, Deho warns. The war ended 20 years ago. The galaxy found peace. Do you really want to be the one to restart an arms race? But their conversation is interrupted by an emergency alert. A Vulcan research vessel has just jumped into the system, transmitting a priority diplomatic message. They're requesting permission to dock and meet with the human who discovered the Kim archive. Someone has been watching. Someone knows what Jimin found. Part 3, Unlikely Allies. The Vulcan research vessel Swift Current docks at Station Delta 7 under heavy escort. Its commander, Science Admiral Talon, using simplified name, approaches under a flag of truce, something unprecedented in post-war relations. Talon reveals a shocking truth. The Vulcans have been searching for Project Prometheus for 2 decades, not to use it but to ensure it stays buried. During the war, Vulcan intelligence intercepted fragments of Kim's research and ran theoretical models. The results were catastrophic. The Prometheus drive doesn't just bend space-time, it tears holes in it. Repeated use could destabilize entire star systems, creating cascading effects that might unravel the fabric of local space. It's not a weapon of war. It's a weapon of cosmic destruction. Your Commander Kim realized this at the last moment, Talon explains through universal translators. That's why she hid the complete specifications instead of using them. She chose defeat over damnation. But Jimin isn't convinced. His analysis of the technical specifications suggests the Vulcan's models might be wrong, based on incomplete data and outdated understanding of quantum mechanics. The drive could be safe if properly calibrated and limited in use. The debate is interrupted when long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching the system. The hegemony, a ruthless alliance of species that has been slowly conquering the outer rim. They've somehow learned about the discovery and are coming to claim it. Faced with a common threat, the humans and Vulcans must decide: risk everything by building the Prometheus drive, or watch the galaxy fall to the hegemony's expansion. Jimin makes the choice for them all. He's already started construction. Part 4. The Prometheus Gambit working around the clock in the salvage yard's main hangar. Jimin leads a desperate team of human mechanics and Vulcan engineers in retrofitting an old patrol cruiser with the Prometheus drive. The ship, renamed Second Chance, becomes humanity's last hope as the hegemony fleet closes in. The modification requires precise calibration and exotic materials. Station Commander Yoonji Song raids the salvage yard's inventory, stripping rare components from dozens of decommissioned ships. Meanwhile, Vulcan engineer Kale, simplified name, works alongside Jimin, their species' technological philosophies clashing and combining in unexpected ways. As they work, personal bonds form across species lines. Daeho shares stories of the old war, helping the team understand the weight of their actions. Yoonji coordinates the station's limited defenses, knowing they can buy only hours once the hegemony arrives. Talon struggles with violating her own species' prohibition against Prometheus technology, but ultimately chooses trust over fear. The hegemony fleet arrives, 200 ships led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion. They demand immediate surrender and transfer of all archaeological materials. When refused, they begin a systematic bombardment of the station. Second Chance launches with her Prometheus drive untested and her crew uncertain. Jimin serves as chief engineer while Daeho takes the pilot's chair, two veterans of different conflicts united by desperate necessity. The first jump is a success beyond all expectations. The ship doesn't just move faster than light, it moves faster than possibility itself, crossing impossible distances instantaneously. But the power is intoxicating, and Jimin realizes why Kim was afraid. With this technology, humans could become the galaxy's new conquerors. The question is, will they choose to? Part 5. What humans do best. The Second Chance emerges behind the hegemony fleet, having traveled to Earth and back in minutes, a journey that should have taken months. The hegemony commander, Overlord Vex, demands to know how such speed is possible. Jimin's response changes everything. Instead of using the Prometheus drive as a weapon, he broadcasts its complete technical specifications to every ship in the system. Hegemony, human and Vulcan alike. This is what humans do, Jimin announces over open channels. We don't hoard power. We share it. We trust that knowledge belongs to everyone, and we believe in everyone's capacity to use it wisely. The Gambit is insane by any military standard. By giving away humanity's ultimate advantage, Jimin has theoretically made every species in the galaxy equally powerful, but he's also made conquest meaningless. When everyone can move at impossible speeds, no one can be trapped or overwhelmed. Overlord Vex, faced with technology that makes traditional warfare obsolete, must choose between escalation and adaptation. Some hegemony ships break formation, their crews unwilling to fight a war that no longer makes sense. The crisis resolves not through violence but through transformation. The Prometheus drive technology forces every species to reconsider their place in the galaxy. With unlimited mobility comes unlimited responsibility and unlimited opportunity for cooperation. 6 months later, Jimin works at the new Prometheus Research Institute, a joint human-Vulcan hegemony facility dedicated to safe implementation of the technology. The old salvage station has become a hub of interspecies cooperation, with representatives from dozens of worlds working together. Epilogue. Jimin keeps Commander Kim's original note framed in his workshop. Beside it hangs a new message, one he wrote himself. Technology without wisdom is destruction. Wisdom without courage is paralysis. But wisdom with courage, that's how we reach the stars together. The old Battlecruiser Defiant has been restored as a memorial, her corridors now filled with students from across the galaxy, learning about both the promise and peril of progress. In her main hangar, a simple plaque reads, "What humans do best isn't fight or conquer, it's trust others to be better than we are." And across the galaxy, as ships powered by human innovation carry crews of mixed species to worlds beyond imagination, the trust is slowly being proven right. End of outline themes: trust over fear, cooperation over conquest, the responsibility that comes with power, and humanity's greatest strength being not our technology, but our willingness to share it. The salvage station's main hangar had never seen activity like this. Dozens of humans and Velkans worked side by side, tearing apart old ships and rebuilding them into something new. Sparks flew from welding torches while heavy machinery moved massive components across the deck. At the center of it all sat the Second Chance, a human patrol cruiser that had seen better days. But she was fast, sturdy, and most importantly, she was big enough to hold the Prometheus drive that Jimin was building from Commander Kim's designs. "Hand me that quantum resonator," Jimin called to Kale, a Velkan engineer who had volunteered to help despite his people's fears about the project. The alien's long fingers were perfect for delicate work, and his knowledge of exotic physics filled gaps in human understanding. "Are you certain this will work?" Kale asked as he passed the device. His English was accented but clear. "The power requirements are enormous." "It will work," Jimin said with more confidence than he felt. "It has to." Around them, the impossible was happening. Species that had fought a bitter war 20 years ago were now sharing knowledge and tools. Commander Yunji had opened every storage bay on the station, giving the teams access to rare materials salvaged from 100 different civilizations. Daeho coordinated the defensive preparations, knowing they had to buy time for the Prometheus project. The station's weapons were old and weak compared to a hegemony fleet, but they might delay the attack for a few precious minutes. Talon worked alongside the human and Velkan engineers, her scientific training invaluable despite her moral reservations about the project. "The field generators are aligned," she reported. "But I must warn you again. We do not know what will happen when this device is activated." "We know what will happen if we do nothing," Jimin replied. He connected another power cable, checking the readings on his scanner. "The hegemony will take the technology and use it to conquer the galaxy. At least this way we control it." The work was exhausting and dangerous. They were building experimental technology using salvaged parts and theoretical knowledge. Every connection had to be perfect. Every calculation had to be exact. One mistake could destroy the ship, the station, or worse. As the hours passed, personal bonds formed across species lines. Humans and Velkans shared stories, food, and fears. Old prejudices faded in the face of common purpose. When a human welder was injured by flying metal, it was a Velkan medic who treated her wounds. "You know," Daeho said during a brief break, "this is probably the first time our species have truly worked together since the war ended." "It took the end of the galaxy to make it happen," Yunji replied dryly. But she was smiling as she said it. The hegemony fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 200 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, their massive forms blotting out the stars. At their head was the Eternal Dominion, a dreadnought the size of a small moon. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. Overlord Vex appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features twisted with impatience. "Your time is up, humans. Surrender the archaeological materials or face destruction." Commander Yunji faced the screen with dignity. "We need more time to gather the materials. Give us 6 more hours. You have had sufficient time. Our scans show advanced construction activity in your main hangar. You are attempting to build something. This deception ends now." The transmission cut off. Moments later, the hegemony fleet began moving toward the station, weapons charging for bombardment. "How long do we have?" Jimin asked from the hangar. 20 minutes. Maybe 30 if we are lucky," Daeho replied over the communication system. Jimin looked at the Prometheus drive, 90% complete but still missing critical components. Around him, humans and Velkans worked with desperate intensity, knowing that failure meant not just their own deaths but the enslavement of the galaxy. "The power core is online," Kyle reported, "but the field stabilizers are not responding correctly. Keep working on them." "Talon, what is the status of the navigation system?" "Functional but untested. We have no way to know if the targeting calculations are accurate. We will find out soon enough." The first hegemony missiles struck the station's outer shields. The entire structure shook, throwing workers to the deck. Emergency lights flickered as power fluctuated throughout the facility. Direct hit on Section 7, Yunji reported. Shields are down to 60%. More missiles followed, each impact bringing the station closer to destruction. But the attacks also had an unexpected effect. They focused everyone's mind on the urgency of their task. Humans and Velkans worked faster, took bigger risks, made intuitive leaps that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. Field stabilizers are online, Kale announced. All systems show green. Jimin made the final connection and stepped back from the drive. The device hummed with barely contained energy, exotic particles dancing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Second chance is ready for launch. The patrol cruiser's crew was a mix of humans and Velkans, volunteers who understood they might not survive the first test of untested technology. Daiho took the pilot's seat while Jimin served as chief engineer. Talon insisted on coming along despite her fears, her scientific expertise too valuable to leave behind. As they prepared for launch, another barrage of missiles struck the station. This time the shields failed completely. Atmosphere began venting from damaged sections as the hegemony fleet closed in for the final assault. All systems ready, Daiho announced from the pilot's seat. Where are we going? Jimin consulted Commander Kim's notes one last time. Earth. If we can reach Earth and back, we prove the drive works and bring help. Earth is 3 months away at normal speed. Then we better hope normal speed is not what we get. The second chance launched from the station's hangar just as the hegemony dreadnought opened fire with its main weapons. Massive energy beams turned sections of the salvage station into glowing plasma, but the small patrol cruiser was already clear. Activating Prometheus drive in 3, 2, 1. Jimin pressed the activation switch. Reality twisted around them like a broken mirror. The stars disappeared, replaced by swirling patterns of light and darkness that made no sense to human or Velkan eyes. The ship shuddered as if it were being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chaos stopped. The main screen showed a familiar blue-green world hanging in space before them. Navigation confirms it, Talon said, her voice filled with wonder and terror. We are in Earth's solar system. The journey took 17 minutes. 17 minutes to cross a distance that should have taken months. The Prometheus drive worked beyond their wildest dreams. But as Jimin watched the readings on his instruments, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Space-time around the ship was fluctuating in ways that matched Talon's warnings. They had torn a hole in reality, and that hole was still growing. The question now was not whether they could save the galaxy. The question was whether they had just doomed it. The Velkan research vessel Swift Current looked nothing like the warships Jimin remembered from old war footage. Where Velkan military vessels were dark and angular, this ship was smooth and white, built for science rather than combat. But the weapons it carried were real enough. Jimin stood with Daiho and Commander Yunji in the station's main docking bay, watching through reinforced windows as the alien ship settled into its berth. Station security formed a protective line, weapons ready but not aimed. 20 years of peace had not erased old fears. I still think this is a mistake, Yunji muttered. She was a small woman with iron in her voice. The kind of person who kept a chaotic salvage station running smoothly. We should have called for military backup. Help is 12 hours away, Daiho replied. Whatever they want, we need to deal with it ourselves. The ship's airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 figures emerged, walking slowly to show they meant no threat. The lead figure was tall and thin, with the pale blue skin and large dark eyes that marked her as Velkan. She wore a simple uniform with scientific symbols rather than military ranks. She stopped a few meters away and spoke in perfect human language. I am Science Admiral Talon of the Velkan Research Division. I request permission to speak with the human who discovered the Kim archive. Jimin stepped forward, his heart pounding. That would be me. Jimin Park. Talon studied him with those large dark eyes. You are younger than I expected. Do you understand what you have found? A faster-than-light drive design. Very advanced, very powerful. Much more than that. Talon looked around the docking bay, taking in the salvaged ships and the tense human faces. May we speak privately? What I have to say concerns the safety of all species in this galaxy. Commander Yunji wanted to refuse, but Daiho nodded. Conference room 3. But our weapons stay with us and our people monitor everything. Minutes later, they sat around a metal table in one of the station's small meeting rooms. Talon had brought 2 assistants, but she did most of the talking. Her words were careful, chosen for maximum impact. "We have been searching for Project Prometheus for 20 years, she began, not to use it, but to ensure it remains buried. Your Commander Kim was wise to hide the technology. Jimin leaned forward. Why? What do you know about it? During the war, Velkin intelligence intercepted fragments of Kim's research. Our best scientists analyzed what they could understand. The theoretical models they produced were... Talon paused, searching for the right word. Catastrophic. She activated a small device that projected holographic images above the table. The images showed space-time as a web of interconnected lines. This is how normal faster-than-light travel works. Ships move through space by following natural paths in the fabric of reality. The image changed, showing a ship disappearing from one point and appearing at another. The Prometheus drive does not follow these paths. It cuts through them. Each jump tears a small hole in space-time itself. But those holes would heal, Jimin said. Reality repairs itself. Under normal circumstances, yes. But repeated use prevents healing. The holes begin to connect, forming larger tiers. Eventually, space-time becomes unstable over vast areas. Daeho spoke up. How vast? Our model suggests that extensive use of the Prometheus drive could destabilize entire star systems. Planets could be torn from their orbits. Stars could collapse or explode. Billions of lives could be lost. The room fell silent. Jimin stared at the holographic display, his engineering mind working through the implications. Your models could be wrong. They are based on incomplete data. Yes, they could be wrong. Are you willing to bet your species' survival on it? But if the models are wrong, and the drive is safe, then humanity could have the fastest ships in the galaxy. We could explore new worlds, help other species, spread peace throughout the stars. Talon nodded slowly. Commander Kim struggled with the same questions. In the end, she decided the risk was too great. She chose to hide the technology rather than use it to save your fleet. And humanity lost the war because of that choice. Humanity survived the war because of that choice. Your species learned to make peace instead of pursuing victory at any cost. The galaxy is better for it. Their conversation was interrupted by another emergency alarm. This time the sound was different, more urgent. Commander Yoonji's voice came over the intercom. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have multiple ships approaching. Big ones. They rushed to the command center to find controlled chaos. Sensor operators called out readings while Yoonji coordinated responses. The main display showed dozens of red contacts approaching the system at high speed. Who are they? Daeho demanded. Hegemony Fleet, Yoonji replied grimly. 200 ships led by the dreadnought Eternal Dominion. They are demanding immediate surrender and transfer of all archaeological materials. Jimin felt sick. The Hegemony was the alliance of aggressive species that had been slowly conquering the outer rim. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. If they learned about Project Prometheus, they would use it to conquer the entire galaxy. How did they find out? He asked. Talon looked equally disturbed. Someone has been monitoring communications. The knowledge is spreading faster than we can contain it. Incoming transmission from the Hegemony flagship, a communications officer announced. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of an alien warship. The creature in command was massive and reptilian, with scales that gleamed like black metal. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. I am Overlord Vex of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. You will surrender immediately and transfer all materials related to advanced propulsion research. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your station and all personnel. Commander Yoonji stepped forward. This is a civilian salvage facility. We have no advanced propulsion research. Do not lie to me, human. We know what was discovered on the vessel designated EDF Defiant. You have 1 hour to comply. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. 200 Hegemony ships against one small salvage station. The outcome was not in doubt. We could try to run, Yoonji said quietly. Load the essential personnel into our fastest ships and scatter. They would hunt us down, Daeho replied. And the technology would still fall into their hands. Jimin looked at the approaching enemy fleet, then at Talon and her assistants. An impossible idea began to form in his mind. What if we could build it? The Prometheus drive. Use it to escape or fight back. Impossible, Talon said. Even if the drive worked perfectly, you could not build it in time. The engineering requirements alone would take months, not if we worked together. Human engineering and Vulcan science. Use parts from the salvaged ships. Take the biggest risks. Deho stared at him. Are you insane? You want to build a weapon that could destroy the galaxy to fight an enemy fleet? I want to build a hope, Jimin said. Maybe Talon's models are wrong. Maybe Commander Kim was too careful. Maybe the galaxy needs someone willing to take the chance. He looked around the room at the faces of humans and Vulcans, former enemies brought together by desperate necessity. We have 1 hour to decide. Build the drive and risk everything, or surrender and definitely lose everything. The choice was impossible, but sometimes impossible choices were the only ones that mattered. Jimin could not sleep. For 3 days he had stared at Commander Kim's technical drawings until his eyes burned. Every time he tried to rest, his mind kept working on the engineering problems. The Prometheus drive was more than just brilliant. It was revolutionary. He had spread the drawings across his small quarters, taping them to the walls like a madman's shrine. Mathematical equations covered every surface. His computer screen showed simulation after simulation as he tried to understand how the drive worked. The basic principle was simple enough. Normal faster-than-light engines pushed ships through space by bending reality around them. The Prometheus drive did something different. Instead of bending space, it seemed to skip over it entirely. Ships would not travel from point A to point B. They would simply stop existing at point A and start existing at point B. The implications made Jimin's head spin. If the drive worked as designed, human ships could cross the entire galaxy in a matter of days. They could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. No alien empire could match that kind of mobility. But Commander Kim's warning haunted him. What had she seen in her simulations that made her hide this miracle instead of using it to save humanity? Jimin decided he needed more information. He accessed the station's historical database and began researching Commander Kim's service record. What he found surprised him. Kim had not just been any engineer. She had been humanity's secret weapon, the mind behind dozens of innovations that kept the fleet fighting. Her designs for improved shields had saved thousands of lives. Her engine modifications had made human ships fast enough to run from superior alien forces. Her weapon systems had given humanity's small fleet the power to hurt enemies much larger than themselves. But as Jimin read deeper into the records, he noticed something strange. Many of Kim's files were classified far above his security level. Entire sections of her service record were blocked out. For a simple battlecruiser engineer, Kim had been involved in an unusual number of top-secret projects. His research attracted attention. The next evening, as Jimin sat in the station's small cafeteria picking at his dinner, Security Chief Deho Lim slid into the seat across from him. Deho was an older man with scars on his hands and a military bearing that 20 years of civilian life had not erased. He was known as fair but firm, the kind of man who kept the peace on a station full of rough workers and dangerous salvage. You have been asking a lot of questions about Commander Kim, Deho said without introduction. His voice was calm, but his eyes were alert. Jimin tried to look innocent. Just curious about history. She was famous. Famous, yes, but not for the reasons most people think. Deho leaned forward. I know what you found on the Defiant, Jimin. I have been waiting 20 years for someone to find it. The words hit Jimin like a physical blow. He nearly choked on his food. What are you talking about? I was EDF intelligence during the war. My job was to watch for certain discoveries, certain technologies that might surface from the wreckage. Project Prometheus was at the top of my list. Jimin looked around the cafeteria. Other workers sat at nearby tables, talking and laughing. None of them seemed to be listening. How did you know? Because I helped Kim hide it, Deho said. I was on the Defiant when she made the decision. I watched her face when she realized what the drive could do. I saw the terror in her eyes. Terror? It is just an engine design. Deho shook his head. It is much more than that. The Prometheus drive does not just affect the ship using it. It affects space-time itself. Each jump tears a small hole in reality. Use it too much and those holes start to connect. Reality starts to unravel. Jimin felt cold despite the warm air in the cafeteria. That is impossible. The math does not work that way. Kim thought the same thing at first. She ran the calculations over and over. But every simulation showed the same result. The drive works perfectly for the first few dozen jumps. After that, space-time begins to destabilize. Continue using it and you could destroy entire star systems. But if it is so dangerous, why did Kim design it at all? She did not know how dangerous it was until it was almost too late. By the time she understood the risks, the Vulcan fleet was already approaching Proxima Station. She had to choose between saving humanity's fleet and risking the destruction of everything. Deho paused, looking out the window at the dead ships floating in the darkness. She chose to hide the technology rather than use it. She chose defeat over damnation. The Defiant was destroyed, Kim died, and humanity lost the war. But the galaxy survived. Jimin stared at the older man. The war ended 20 years ago. The galaxy found peace. Maybe the risk is worth taking now, is it? Are you willing to bet the lives of everyone in the galaxy on maybe? Before Jimin could answer, the station's emergency alarm began to wail. Red lights flashed throughout the cafeteria as workers looked up in confusion. Emergency alarms were rare on Salvage Station Delta 7. The station was too far from anywhere important to be in danger. The intercom crackled to life. All personnel, report to emergency stations. Unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Repeat, unknown vessel approaching. Deho was already on his feet, his military training taking over. Jimin followed him to the station's command center, where they found chaos. Sensor operators bent over their screens while Station Commander Yoonji Song barked orders. What do we have? Deho asked. Single ship, unknown configuration. Yoonji replied without looking up. They jumped in at the edge of the system and are heading straight for us. No response to our communications. Any identification? That is the strange part. The ship's design matches Vulcan military vessels, but it is broadcasting civilian codes. They are requesting permission to dock and speak with the human who discovered the Kim archive. Jimin felt the blood drain from his face. How could they possibly know? Deho looked grim. Someone has been watching. Someone knows what you found. He turned to Yoonji. Give them permission to dock, but keep all weapons trained on them, and send a message to EDF Command. Tell them we have a situation. As the mysterious Vulcan ship approached the station, Jimin realized that his discovery had already changed everything. The secrets of Project Prometheus were secret no longer. The question now was who else wanted the technology, and what they were willing to do to get it. The ghosts of the old war were stirring, and Jimin was at the center of it all. The plasma torch hissed as it cut through the old metal. Jimin Park wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his watch. 3 more hours until his shift ended. 3 more hours of crawling through the dark tunnels of dead spaceships. Salvage Station Delta 7 never slept. The massive orbital yard floated in the empty space between stars, filled with the bones of old warships. Some were human ships from the Great War 20 years ago. Others belonged to alien races who had fought and died in battles most people preferred to forget. Now they all rotted together in the cold darkness of space. Jimin worked alone, as always. The other mechanics avoided him. They knew his story. Former military engineer, kicked out for drinking, lost his family, lost everything. Now he spent his nights cutting copper wire from dead ships for barely enough money to buy food and cheap alcohol. Tonight he was working on the EDF Defiant, a battlecruiser from the old Earth Defense Force. The ship was ancient by space standards, built over 200 years ago when humans first learned to travel between stars. She had fought in the war against the Vulcan Empire, back when humanity was weak and desperate. The ship was mostly empty now. Other crews had already taken anything valuable. The weapons were gone. The computers were stripped clean. All that remained were miles of tunnels, pipes, and wiring that Jimin had to cut out piece by piece. He crawled through a maintenance tunnel barely wide enough for his shoulders. The plasma torch in his hand cast dancing shadows on the metal walls. Somewhere in the distance he could hear the station's recycling systems humming. Otherwise, the universe was silent. His torch slipped as he reached for a bundle of copper cables. The bright plasma beam cut through what looked like a solid wall panel. But instead of hitting metal, the beam went right through. There was empty space behind the wall. Jimin stopped working and stared at the hole he had accidentally made. Hidden compartments were not unusual in old military ships. Sometimes crews hid personal items or contraband. Usually it was just pictures of home or bottles of illegal alcohol. Nothing worth much, but this compartment was different. It was too well hidden, too carefully made. Someone had spent time and effort to make sure this space would never be found. Jimin made the hole bigger with his torch and squeezed through. His helmet light revealed a small room, perfectly preserved. In the center sat a single metal container with military markings he recognized. The symbols meant top secret and command authorization required. The container was locked, but 20 years of salvage work had taught Jimin how to open almost anything. Inside, wrapped in protective plastic, was something that made his heart race. A handwritten note and several sheets of technical drawings. The note was written on real paper, something nobody used anymore. The handwriting was careful and neat. At the top it said, "To whoever finds this," and was signed, Commander Hee-Soo Kim, Chief Engineer, EDF Defiant. Jimin knew that name. Every engineer in human space knew that name. Commander Kim was a legend. Her innovations had kept the human fleet fighting long after they should have been crushed by superior alien technology. She had died when the Defiant was destroyed at the Battle of Proxima Station, humanity's worst defeat. But here was her handwriting, and the date on the note was 3 days before that battle. Jimin read the note slowly, his hands shaking slightly. Commander Kim wrote about something called Project Prometheus. She described it as a new type of faster-than-light engine that could change everything. But she also wrote about being afraid. The project was too dangerous, she said. Too powerful for any species to control safely. The technical drawings that came with the note made Jimin's engineering mind spin with excitement. He could understand enough to see the brilliance of the design. This was not just an improvement to existing technology. This was something completely new, something that could make human ships faster than anything else in the galaxy. But why had Commander Kim hidden it instead of using it? Why choose defeat when victory was possible? The note gave a partial answer. Kim wrote that she had run computer simulations of the Prometheus drive. Something about the results had scared her badly enough to hide the project, rather than save humanity's fleet. She wrote that whoever found the note should think very carefully before building the drive. Some prices are too high to pay, the note said. Some victories cost more than defeat. If you build this, make sure you understand what you are unleashing. Jimin sat in the hidden room for a long time, reading the note again and again. The technical drawings spread out around him like a puzzle waiting to be solved. His mind was already working on the engineering problems, seeing how the pieces would fit together. Outside the dead ship, the salvage station continued its slow orbit. Other night shift workers cut and welded and sorted the remains of old wars. None of them knew that everything had just changed. Jimin carefully folded the note and drawings, sealing them back in their protective plastic. He crawled out of the hidden compartment and continued his work, cutting copper wire as if nothing had happened. But his mind was racing. Project Prometheus could make humanity the most powerful species in the galaxy, ships that could cross vast distances in days instead of months, technology that could change the balance of power forever. Commander Kim had been afraid to use it, but that was 20 years ago. Maybe she had been wrong. Maybe the danger was not as great as she thought, or maybe the danger was worse than anyone could imagine. As his shift ended and he prepared to return to his small quarters, Jimin made a decision. He would study the note and drawings. He would understand what Commander Kim had discovered, and then he would decide what to do with the most dangerous secret in human space. Behind him, the old battlecruiser Defiant drifted in the darkness, keeping her secrets. But one secret was secret no longer. For better or worse, Project Prometheus had been found. The question now was what humanity would do with it.